Steve, what did Tony Gwynn mean to you personally?
Well, he was such a good friend. He was an inspiration. He was a God-fearing man who was a great father and a great husband, a great teammate, a great leader, a great patriot. So when I first came here, I helped mentor him, and as Candace and I, my wife, were talking the other day, at the end of my career, he was a mentor for me because of the way he conducted himself and his family life and his children and what I knew he was going to go on to be, and that's a tremendous spokesman for the game.
Do you have a favorite Tony Gwynn moment, whether it comes from the field, the dugout, or the locker room?
Oh, he's a terrible flyer. So one of the first trips in 1983, I'm sitting there and we're coming in and it's foggy, and all of a sudden Tony jumps in the seat next to me, and he's gripping I said, "What's the matter?" He said, "I hate to fly, Garv." And Ted Leitner said, "If I fly with you, this plane isn't going to go down because God's not going to let it go down." And I looked at him and I said, "You're kidding me." He said, "No." So 4 or 5 years later, my last year, he's sitting next to me on the plane, and it's a similar situation. And he said, "Aren't you nervous?" I said, "No, God's not going to let this plane go down with you on it." And he looked at me, started to laugh, and he said, "That's real good. I'm still nervous." But he was like that, that humor and that smile, and, in some ways an assassin, that smile, because he'd set pitchers up and they'd feel comfortable and he'd lace one to left for a double and win the game.
What did Tony Gwynn mean to the game of baseball?
Well, all good things. He was a great player, great hitter, played hard all the time, steal a base. But the thing I really respected about Tony more than anything else, he was a great role model for our kids. He conducted himself really well. He didn't pat himself on the back. He went out and basically showed up for work every day, and never took anything for granted. All the good things, a great deal of character, and there aren't enough of those types of people.
Something that you got an up-close appreciation in New York with Derek Jeter, who's going to spend his entire Hall of Fame career with the Yankees, and Tony with the Padres. How special is something like that to happen in sports these days?
Well, it's sort of the, cliche, a vanishing American. You don't have to be an American, but just the fact that it's not going to happen that often anymore, especially the length of the career. You may spend all 5 years of a big league career in one team, but for the time that Tony played and Derek is playing, that's rare because it's a business, and when guys start losing their skills, you really can't blame ball clubs, even though you feel you'd like to have them owe a certain amount of loyalty. There is a business. But Tony Gwynn was, I'd like to say he was fun to watch, but I played against him too many times, and I can't say that was fun. It was frightening.
Brian, I have to ask you, as a kid growing up in San Diego and then later on as a Padre, what did Tony Gwynn mean to you in Padres baseball?
He was a huge part of, how I wanted to hit. He hit, not only did he have a good on-base percentage, he hit for a very high average. And, I saw myself as a Tony Gwynn type hitter, and developed a little more power as my career progressed. But certainly as a kid growing up, he was the face of the franchise and an inspiration as a kid growing up in San Diego.
For someone that later on put on that same uniform, what did Tony Gwynn mean to this organization and to baseball in general?
It's as a kid growing up in San Diego and getting traded here and getting to play for the Padre organization, and finally be around Tony Gwynn a lot of the times when he was doing broadcasting here. That's all you can ask for as a kid or as a player, and then as a kid growing up and you get to be around one of the greats every day. It's a privilege.
Yeah, it's so many of them have been kind of touched upon the last week, but just watching him do his thing in his locker each and every night, whether it was fixing the leather on his glove or pulling out the scale from Brian Prilliman and weighing his bats to make sure there wasn't a half ounce off, otherwise he'd have to send it back, holding court in the dugout at the Murph, not wanting to do interviews and then getting strong arm and do it, and then sitting there for another hour enjoying talking about baseball. So Teddy went around the crowd tonight, introduced some of the people in attendance, and when Steve Garvey was introduced and it was talked about who taught Tony how to be a professional a little bit, it was in Tony, but it certainly was a gift to be able to watch Steve handle some of the things that he did, and I think Tony in turn learned a great deal from that.
As far as the fan outpouring, I mean, they were incredible, and how many people showed up to support.
I don't think anybody would have thought any different. Tony Gwynn was, like I said, San Diego, and San Diego wanted to be here for him to send him off the right way and let him know that he's going to be loved and missed.